In this video, we're going to learn why India has put a ban on rice exports and what are the reasons behind it. I will also tell you what developed countries think about it, and in the end, I will tell you what could be the bigger picture that we all are missing out. Alright, then let's begin. You must have seen in the news that India banned rice exports on July 28, 2023. I meant July 2020, not 28. More specifically, India has banned the exports of non-basmati white rice. Basmati rice is a long grain rice that is usually grown in the foothills of the Himalayas. It is known for its unique flavor and aroma, hence used on special occasions. And non-basmati rice is a short grain rice that is grown in many parts of India. It is commonly consumed as a staple food. The Food and Consumer Affairs Ministry on July 28th banned the export of non-basmati white rice. It is said that this ban could impact as much as 80% of India's rice exports. Just to let you know, India exports rice to more than 140 countries in the world. India is the world's largest rice exporter, contributing to about 40% of the global rice trade. Therefore, it is fair enough to say that this export ban will definitely impact global food security. Now, let me point out the reasons why India may have decided to ban rice exports. Rice prices inside India have been rising for the past few months due to a combination of factors. I will give you 4 reasons and then one additional reason, total 5. Reason number 1. After COVID and the Russia-Ukraine war, there has been a significant rise in global food prices. Almost every country in the world is struggling with it. However, India is still comparatively in a better position in terms of managing inflation when compared to many big countries. But nevertheless, for the past 3 years, there has been a significant rise in global food prices. So this is reason number 1. Now reason number 2. There are concerns about a potential shortage of rice in India. As you may know, the Indian monsoon season started late. Due to this, the farmers do not have enough time to sow summer crops. The sowing time of rice is June and July, and it is harvested in October-November. Therefore, it is said that this year the cultivation of rice is expected to be lower than last year. So, this ban is a way to ensure that there is enough rice available for domestic consumption. Now, reason number 3. There has been an increased demand for Indian rice from China in the past few months. And this is an interesting point. I will tell you more about it because China is currently the largest producer of rice in the world. And despite being the largest producer of rice, it is still importing rice from India heavily. Now, why is that? As you know, rice is a staple food in China, and the middle class population in China is expanding. India is a reliable supply of rice, and then Indian rice is generally low in price compared to other countries such as Thailand and Vietnam. So this makes Indian rice an attractive option for Chinese buyers. So to protect the domestic market and look after the Indian citizens first, the government of India has decided to put a ban on rice export so that it can cool the domestic market price and provide some relief to Indian consumers. I will also tell you why China was importing so much rice from India despite being the largest producer in the world. As you know, India is the second largest producer of rice. These are the top 10 countries that are the largest producer of rice in the world. That means China has sufficient rice for its own people. But then if you see, it is still purchasing Indian rice so that it can sell to other countries at a higher price and make a profit on it. Or maybe they are also storing rice as a stockpile for an uncertain event that China is planning. That is why China was importing so much of rice from India despite being the largest producer in the world. So you see, there is a huge competition in the global rice market. That means India has to compete with all other 9 major rice exporters. Now this competition could lead to higher prices for consumers and lower profits for farmers. Because a buyer will always look for a seller who is willing to give high quality rice at a reasonable price. And this kind of market competition will definitely lower profits for farmers and increase rice prices for Indian domestic consumers. So this is also one of the important reasons why the government of India has put a complete ban on rice exports. Because they are looking after the interest of the Indian people, Indian consumers and Indian farmers. And now I will tell you reason number 4. As you just saw, India is the second largest producer of rice in the world. After this ban, naturally there will be a lot of rice for domestic consumption. There is no doubt about that. So what do you think farmers will do? Obviously they will not produce more rice. Government of India will incentivize farmers to produce something else or produce rice at a lower quantity. This is where you have to understand that This rice export ban will create demand for other grains, such as wheat and corn. There may be other grains as well, I'm just giving an example. Now this could increase the prices as well as demand in the international market for grains other than rice. Now let me give you the fifth reason. I want you to look at this data from last year 2022. The top 6 countries exporting rice in million metric tons. On July 20, India has put a full ban on its non-basmati rice exports. I want you to imagine this. Where in the world rice importing countries will find 22 million metric tons to replace India's presence. Even the government of India is aware of it. Now I'm putting a question to you. While the 4 reasons that I've mentioned above could very well be a contributing factor to India's decision to impose a complete export ban on non-basmati rice. However, it is also possible that there might be a bigger underlying reason behind the action taken by the Indian government. There could be a geopolitical reason that is not explicitly mentioned in these 4 reasons. To understand that, you need to understand the broader analysis of India's overall policies and international relations. The 5th reason why the government of India has banned the export of non-basmati rice is that India has some ongoing disputes with World Trade Organization, and one of them is seeking permanent protection of public stockholding schemes. Public stockholding schemes are government programs that purchase and store food grains to stabilize prices and ensure food security. For example, India has a public distribution system, which is profoundly called a ration shop. To supply food grains to marginal income families or below poverty line families, Government of India has to procure grains and stock them in Food Corporation India's godowns. India's public stockholding schemes are one of the largest in the world, and this has been the subject of number of WTO disputes. According to WTO's dispute settlement body, they think India's public stockholding schemes are inconsistent with WTO rules. As a result, what they did was, WTO gave India a peace clause that allowed India to continue its program until a permanent solution was found. Now, this peace clause is due to expire in 2023, and India is still seeking a permanent solution that would allow it to continue its public stockholding schemes without violating WTO rules. Look, you need to understand this. World Trade Organization is heavily and fully controlled by the United States and a few other Western countries. The problem that WTO has with India's public stockholding schemes is that WTO doesn't like the fact that Indian government is heavily subsidizing domestic producers of rice. Now you would say, what's the matter in that? Every government of a country has the right to decide how much they want to subsidize their own farmers. Why would WTO dictate to a country how much to produce? This is where you have to understand that as a member of the World Trade Organization, 164 member countries have to accept WTO's agreement on agriculture. As per this agreement, the World Trade Organization will set a limit on the amount of support that the country's government can provide to their agricultural producers. Otherwise, there will be an impact on the world trade balance sheets and it may create food insecurity. And currently, WTO has a problem with the Indian government because WTO believes that the Indian government's public stock holding schemes are paying farmers more for their rice than they could get on the open market. For this, India is seeking a permanent solution that would allow it to continue its public stockholding schemes without violating the WTO rules. Now, India's proposal is to move its public stockholding schemes into the green box of the Agreement of Agriculture. Now, this proposal has been met with mixed reactions from other WTO members. Some countries support India's proposals, while others argue that they would undermine WTO's rules on agriculture subsidies. Let me also tell you which countries are not in favor. They are the United States, European Union, Australia, Canada, Japan, Norway and Switzerland. That is why I said World Trade Organization is heavily influenced and controlled by Western countries. They don't care about India's internal domestic problems. India's public stockholding schemes are necessary to ensure food security for its own people. But these Western countries are looking after their own interests, their own domestic farmer unions' demands, and their own rising inflation. This is a major reason why India has to put a complete export ban on its own basmati rice. In other words, the government of India is putting the interest of its own citizens first by ensuring there is enough rice for domestic consumption during tough times. Now, let me show you what is happening around the world after India took such a decision. Canada, the United States and many other countries around the world are stockpiling rice after hearing the decision of the government of India. You could see a similar situation in Texas. The Indian community is spread across North America And as you know, rice is a staple food in Indian Bharatiya culture. That is the reason Indians who live in these places have started stockpiling rice bags after hearing the Government of India's decision. Now, many departmental stores in the United States have come up with this rule of one rice bag per family rule. You can imagine the situation. Plus, most of the news is coming from North America. American residents are hoarding rice after hearing this big decision from the Government of India. Meanwhile, let me also show you what International Monetary Fund (IMF) chief has said about India's decision. India's restriction would have a similar effect of the suspension of Ukraine Black Sea grain export deal. On July 17th, the Black Sea grain deal, which allowed for the export and import of grain through the Ukrainian seaport of Odessa, came to an end. Following this, Russia made it clear that they have no intention of renewing the deal. In fact, President Putin has even said this deal is meaningless now. As a result, the Russian Navy placed sea mines in the Black Sea, effectively blocking any export-import activities at the Odessa seaport. This is point number 1. Point number 2. In the first week of July, even China announced that they are going to ban the export of two metals, gallium and germanium, that are used in semiconductor manufacturing. I'm not saying that a complete ban has been imposed. I'm saying now there will be a requirement for heavy permission for the export of these two items. And it won't be easily granted because China has linked the export of these two rare earth metals to its national security. Point number 3. Again, in the first week of July, you must have also heard that Saudi Arabia will be extending its voluntarily low output of crude oil. And then point number 4. On July 28th, India has put a complete ban on the export of non-basmati rice. 27th July, the United States Federal Reserve has again increased the interest rates to control inflation. So what does all of this indicate? Again, winter is coming. Just like last winter, it will again increase fuel prices. And this time there will be a food shortage due to rice and wheat and a semiconductor shortage from China. That will directly as well as indirectly force the United States to hike interest rates. Also keep in mind that the United States will also export its inflation to other countries. And that will trigger the acceleration of de-dollarization. And then we have also heard that the BRICS nation also have plans to introduce their new reserve currency. So if you put all of this together, then a broader perspective and a comprehensive view can be easily visualized, and that may soon materialize. Only time will tell. So let's see what happens. I hope you found this video informative. Thank you for watching it.